Hi, I'm Dr. Al Bailey again, coming with a YouTube message, spiritual vitamin, if you will. And the subject today is how you can be a champion as you face the difficulties of life. And it is possible to be a champion. How do we find the answers to this question? How do we be a champion as you face the difficulties of life? Well, we're going to look today at Daniel chapter 2, verses 10 through 18. We're going to look at Proverbs 13, verses 6 through 11, and we're going back to Fred Hartley III's Hearts on Fire, and this subject is called We Are the Champions. When I was in high school, back in the 80s, that was a long time ago, there was a song that came out called We Are the Champions. It's by a rock group named Queen. And that song basically was played when you won the championship. If you won the football championship or the baseball championship, if you won the soccer championship, they would always play the song, We Are the Champions. And here's the interesting thing. God sees you as a champion. God sees you as a champion every time you join him in battle. When you are battling with God against the enemies, again, the enemy inside of you, the enemy that is facing you from external forces, whenever you battle those enemies, God calls you a champion. Now, how do you actually become a champion? God calls you a champion simply because you are joining him in the battle. We see this in Daniel chapter 2, verses 10 through 18. And we see that this actually happens in the adverse situation, as when we open Daniel chapter 2, verse 10, we see people who aren't on God's side. These are the magicians and the astrologers, the enchanters and the sorcerers. They are trying to reason with King Nebuchadnezzar because they are being exposed because they really don't have any power. And they say to King Nebuchadnezzar, they say, hey, nobody can interpret a dream that we don't know except the gods, plural, little G-O-D-S, gods. And they said those gods don't even live here on earth. And so what they're doing basically is giving their allegiance to false gods. And the king gets upset because, again, he has this dream that nobody can figure out. And so the king orders the death and execution, first and foremost, of the wise men of Babylon. Now notice something strange about that. He said he was going to kill the astrologers, the sorcerers, the magicians. But guess what? He went after God's people first. You see, I believe that evil had understood what God was trying to do. And evil said, hey, don't destroy those who are working for you. Get God's people first. Get God's people who God is about to give the opportunity of a lifetime. And so the king ordered Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego all to be killed. But guess how Daniel actually handles this tragic news? Daniel is approached by a man by the name of Arioch. Arioch is actually the commander of the persons who are about to kill Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. But when Daniel gets that terrible news that he is going to be killed, he handles that terrible news very calmly. Why is he able to handle it so calmly? Because he answers that tragic news that he's about to meet his maker. He's about to meet his demise. He answers it with the gifts that God has given them. And let me pause right here and say this. When you receive some tragic news, when you are being approached by the enemy and it looks like you're not going to win, respond to that with the news, the good news, with the gifts that God has given you. Daniel had been given the gift of wisdom and discretion, and Daniel used that gift, his wisdom and his discretion, to be able to address the tragic news that was coming his way. And when you use the gifts that God has given you, when you are in a fierce battle, God will show up in the midst of it. How do we see this? In Daniel 2, when he is about to meet his demise, He simply goes using the gifts God has given him. He uses his wisdom and his discretion and says to Arioch, and notice they name who the person is, the commander who's about to destroy him. Now that's important. That's an important clue because Arioch's name means fierce lion. His name means he is strong and ferocious in nature. So this was not a very nice person, and he is about to destroy Daniel. But Daniel uses his gifts from God, his wisdom, his discretion, and Daniel simply, very calmly, very politely asks one question. He says, "Why has the king issued such a harsh punishment?" He asked that of the person whose name means ferocious in nature. And guess what? That's when God steps in, because God calms Arioch down. And Arioch begins to tell Daniel all about what's going on. You see, God is always working behind the scenes. He was able to take the ferociousness out of the man, and so he was now talking calmly to Daniel, telling him what was going on. Daniel, I'm sure, noticed this, and Daniel decides that he's going to start walking in the authority that God has given him. How do we know this? Because Daniel told Arioch, the person who was about to destroy him, "Hey, I'm going to see the king." And Arioch lets him go to see the king. Daniel makes a request of the king. "Hey, I need more time to show you how I can be able to interpret your dream." And so Daniel leaves the king's request. Why is he able to leave the king's presence when the king has ordered him to die? Again, God is working behind the scenes because God is sovereign. He is fighting on your behalf. You'll be able to do things that you never even thought you would be able to do. Why? Because as you are fighting with God, God is fighting on your side with you. Daniel gets to go home and even have discussion with his friends. And what does he do? He tells his friends the tragic news. But Daniel says to his friends, don't be dismayed, don't be upset, don't have a case of anxiety, don't be fearful, but simply take this request to God. Let's all talk to God. You see, Daniel did something that was really, really important. He found some friends, some relatives, some associates, some neighbors who would go with him to God and pray on this issue. And my brothers and sisters, if you don't have some people in your space, in your life, who are prayer warriors, who know how to call on the name of God, who know how to get a prayer through, who know how to pray for you and with you, then you need to get some new friends. Yeah, you need a couple new friends. And so Daniel got Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, and they all prayed together. And in the end of the story, of course, Daniel gets the understanding about the dream. But it's so important that you surround yourself with people. And here's the blessing, that when Daniel got the answer to his prayer, not only could Daniel celebrate, but also his friends could celebrate, because they could say God answered the prayer because we all came together. But I found something even more interesting. Wasn't it interesting how you see how the two different parties in the story were trying to get access to power? You see, the sorcerers, the magicians, the astrologers, the enchanters, they didn't go to their gods, their false gods, to ask for power to be able to interpret the prayers. However, Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, they went to the God of true power and asked him, God, help us to understand what this dream means so that we won't meet our demise. Make sure you are in contact with someone with true power. And so when you are dealing with difficulties in your life, you can be a champion just like Daniel. You can be a champion. How? You simply have to join in the fight with God. Again, God will fight with you as you are fighting with God. As you are both fighting together against the evil within and without, he will make sure he's fighting with you. And when God and you get to fighting the enemy, God will fight behind the scenes. He'll be knocking the enemy out and you won't even know that he's doing it. all you'll see is that doors keep opening, ways keep being made for you. And when that happens, my brothers and sisters, walk in the authority that God has given you. And when you walk in that authority, God will make ways out of no ways. But make sure you always, always, always take your requests to God, because there will come something in your life that you can't deal with. Take it to your friends, your prayer warrior friends. And again, if you don't have any prayer warrior friends, make sure you get them. And also make sure you know what your spiritual gifts are. Daniel knew that he had the gift of wisdom and discretion. And if you don't know what your spiritual gifts are, look up online. I'm going to see if I can drop it in the link below this video. A spiritual gifts assessment. Take your spiritual gifts. Find out the gifts God has given you so that you can use them in the battles that you're facing. And finally, we have to look at Proverbs 13 and see all of the wonderful things that God is doing for us. Make sure you look at Proverbs 13. That's your homework. I'm going to let you see the great things that you have to do. I'm not going to tell you those things. You need to take those things, look at Proverbs 13, and you'll begin to see the very things that you need to do this week to make sure you are living as a champion. God bless you.